5 Live Formula One.
And welcome to the Autodromo Nazionale Monza as we're gearing up for the Power Hour here. It's qualifying time and it's finally time to find out who will start on pole position for tomorrow's Italian Grand Prix. Of course, the favourite is the two-time world champion and current World Championship leader Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. But as we arrived on Ferrari's home soil, suddenly things started to change a little bit. Ferrari looking competitive this weekend. Carlos Sainz, who celebrated his 29th birthday yesterday, topped the timesheets in FP2 and followed that up with another timesheet topping performance in FP3. So could Ferrari take pole position in front of their adoring and passionate fans, the Tifosi, this afternoon? Michael Schumacher, who of course drove for Ferrari, says if you win with Ferrari, it's a dream, but if you win with Ferrari in Monza, there are no words to describe it. Of course, Charles Leclerc has won here. That happened back in 2019, but Carlos Sainz is yet to do it. So there's lots to look forward to this afternoon, and joining me in the commentary box is our lead commentator Harry Benjamin and former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer. It's looking close, guys, but is it closer than we thought coming into this weekend, Harry?
I hope so. I mean, at the moment, Sainz and Ferrari have showed the pace throughout the weekend and have been there or thereabouts, if not pipping Verstappen. There's going to be so much that comes into it in this qualifying. It's not just going to be out-and-out pace. It's going to be trying to find the right place on track so you're not blocked. Are you going to benefit from somebody in front of you to give you a little bit of slipstream? And what about this new tyre rule as well, the alternative tyre allocation, where we have to use the hards in Q1, the mediums in Q2 and the softs in Q3. It's all to play for, but on home soil with that power of Tifosi, I think Ferrari are in the fight.
They could be the extra gear this afternoon, the Tifosi. Jolyon, you know what it's like to race around here. Qualifying, as Harry said, has so many bits to it, so many challenges. How would you be approaching this particular session, given that we've got this mandated tyre allocation, with the teams having to kick things off on that hard tyre?
Yeah, for the major players, it's not as straightforward as they would have liked. Normally, they run on the soft tyre and run it through, make small changes through the hour, and by the time they're in Q3, they know exactly where they need to be braking. They know exactly where they want to be on car setup, and they're so dialed in. With this tyre rule that we've got for this weekend, starting on the hard tyre, feeling your way on the least grippy tyre, then building it up each session, you have to recalibrate, and that makes things a little bit harder for all the drivers, but particularly those that are going to be through to fight for pole later in the hour. Got to stay on top of things. Got to move towards the soft tyre at the end.
Absolutely. I tell you what, there's one challenge that's not been thrown into the mix this afternoon, and that's the weather. It is spicy hot here, 28 degrees ambient. We've got quite used to these wet sessions, haven't we? So at least that's not going to provide a headache for the teams. Set fair, I think it's fair to say, Harry, this afternoon.
Yeah, no sign of rain in the sky. A couple of clouds overhead, but the Italian weather holding firm, as you can attest to. But as the drivers start to get strapped into their cockpits, they don't have to worry about any of that tumultuous rain on and off that we got last weekend in Zandvoort.
And Jolyon, we've seen a lot of drivers make their way through the field here. You can overtake, a little bit tricky here and there, but is all lost today if you don't qualify on the first or second row?
Probably not, really, because whatever happens today, Verstappen will be favourite tomorrow. He can start 15th and still win. And yeah, I think you can gain if you're his rivals. If anything happens to Max and you end up as a Ferrari on pole, you can gain. You can give yourself a chance. But I don't think Max can lose everything if even the worst comes today and he starts right from the back. That's the nature of 2023. The Red Bull's so good, particularly in the hands of Verstappen. He cannot lose a race weekend anymore on a Saturday. But of course others can, and still they're fighting for a second place in a Grand Prix, fighting for a podium. And if you're a Mercedes, you don't want to be too far back. The weekend's not been plain sailing for them so far, but they've got to try and punch up towards the top 5 here. And Ferrari, they've got to take the pressure of having those good practice sessions and deliver maybe a front row today.
Absolutely. Well, Lewis Hamilton was P3 in FP3. He'll be looking for something similar, I think, in the coming hour. Anyone else we should keep our eyes on? Whilst, of course, the Tifosi have got the Ferraris covered. Who else should we keep a little lookout for?
Well, I think there's a couple out there. We want to see what the Williams of Alex Albon can do. They went very well on a twisty circuit with not too much straight line speed advantage in Zandvoort, which was a bit of a surprise to them and all of us. Now we come to a track where it is all about low downforce, reducing that drag, where Williams should go well. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Albon does.
Absolutely.
The other team that are going to be there, I think it's looking like a Red Bull v Ferrari with potentially McLaren joining. And remember how quick McLaren were on Saturday last week. Lando Norris was on the front row. They've shown a lot of pace recently. I think Norris could potentially be one to watch.
Yeah, it slightly got away from them in FP3. We know they've brought circuit-specific upgrades to Monza, of course, that low downforce track that we're racing around this weekend. They've been testing that a lot. Lots of flow-viz on the back of Lando Norris's McLaren this morning. Hopefully, they've got all the data they needed as we get ready for qualifying. This is it then. Let's find out who'll start on pole for tomorrow's Italian Grand Prix. Over to you guys in the commentary box.
Thank you very much, Rosanna, as the clock begins to count down already. 18 minutes now down to 16 minutes and 55 seconds for this first part of qualifying Q1, where we will eliminate the bottom 5 drivers who fail to make the cut. And of course, with the alternative tyre allocation, where Pirelli have reduced the amount of sets brought for each team down from the usual 13 to 11, and into qualifying, that means we have mandated compounds to be used in each of the Qs. So first up, everyone's got to be on that hard compound of tyre as Max Verstappen emerges from the pit lane and down towards the braking zone of the turn 1 chicane, the Rettifilo chicane here in Monza. 5.79 kilometres, 3.6 miles, 11 turns, 7 to the right, 3 to the left. And this is going to be an exciting one, Jolene, because it is tight. It hasn't been as straightforward for Max Verstappen. And here at Monza, traffic management is going to be an absolutely massive factor, especially when there are 20 cars out on track.
And there's going to be 20 cars on track fairly shortly, I think. So far, we've got 12 out on circuit. 8 remain. The Ferraris are 2 of them, still waiting patiently in the garage. Hard tyres adorned on all of the machinery at the moment. And I'm looking forward to this because we haven't really seen anyone lighting it up on the hard tyre throughout the weekend. You don't tend to do that. That's not why the hard tyre is brought to races. Typically, it's a race tyre, and if you're in a high deck circuit, you chuck it on and it can work on a Sunday. But with this tyre rule, you've got to make it work on a Saturday and in this part, in Q1. So let's see what happens. Will it fire up straight away on the first laps? Will we have a couple of flying laps on it? The cars have all filtered out pretty quickly. Still, there are 5 cars now left in the garage. Still, there's 2 Ferraris, 2 Aston Martins and Ocon. Everyone else out on circuit, clearly trying to get a couple of laps on the board on this first set of hards.
Yep, Carlos Sainz just waiting patiently in his garage, surrounded by his Ferrari team, the man who has been on top for the last couple of practice sessions, as Verstappen begins a lap. DRS flap wide open as the rear wing slides open and then shut, under braking for turn 1 and 2. Magnussen also out there on a quick lap, but through the first chicane as the rear starts to slide out a little bit for Verstappen on these hard compound tyres as he rushes through the right-hander of Curva Grande. It was a sea of orange for him last week. Now it's a sea of red for the Ferrari fans.
And so far they'll be disappointed because they're still in the garage now into the 4th minute of the session. Verstappen right out wide of the Della Roggia chicane, the second chicane, which brings you into the first Lesmo. Slightly cambered right-hander, carry a reasonable amount of speed. Straight into the second Lesmo. Max very wide out on the exit curve, the second Lesmo. He's got Lando Norris just behind him, picking up a distant tow. Then there's Sergio Perez just behind Norris. So these 3 running all line astern, Verstappen, Norris and Perez. And Verstappen is the fastest of the 3 so far through the middle sector. Perez was the quickest in the first sector. That's just been taken by Alex Albon. That first sector, particularly around this circuit, all about straight line speed.
Well, Albon was a man to watch last weekend, and so far finding more pace in that Williams once again this weekend, though, as Verstappen rounds the final corner. His first lap time, it's a 1:22.0 on that hard compounded tyre, fastest of anybody in that final sector. Russell also going very quickly, though, as Perez slots into second, Norris third. Rosanna.
Yes, just a word from the Red Bull garage. That leak that stopped Sergio Perez in FP3 all sorted out over the lunch break, and as you've just seen, he's gone up into P3 on the hard tyre as everybody is mandated to use that white tyre for this part of qualifying. Going to be interesting to see how Perez fares in this qualifying session. Of course, whilst he felt comfortable in the car yesterday, he obviously had that off into the gravel and of course stopping early in FP3 with that oil leak.
Albon has just gone fastest.
That lap time was deleted for track limits at turn 7, Max.
He was miles off. That was the second Lesmo, and he was definitely all over the curb and some. So Verstappen has no time on the board. His time was quicker than Albon, who is now at the top. Quarter of a tenth quicker than Russell. Just a couple of hundredths between the Williams and the Mercedes, which has shown better speed in the hands of George Russell on that first run. Logan Sargent's up to 4th and Joe is up to 5th. So some of those slower runners, they've had good first outing on this hard tyre.
Well, last time we had this alternative tyre allocation was Hungary, and who did quite well then? It was both of the Alfa Romeos who seemed to benefit from running these mandated hard compound tyres in the first part of qualifying. And as you say, Zhou up into 5th at the moment, Bottas half a second off in 8th. Right now, there were 12 minutes to go of Q1. Albon, Russell, Perez, Sargent and Zhou are the top 5. Norris, Hamilton, Bottas, Magnussen, Gasly the top 10, Piastri, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg and Lawson, the 14 drivers who have set a time. We are awaiting times. Well, another attempt for Max Verstappen after his last one was deleted for exceeding track limits. The 2 Ferraris, the 2 Aston Martins and the Esteban Ocon Alpine, which is now out on track, and Leclerc and Sainz both out there on push laps. Personal best for both of them at the moment as Sainz goes fastest of anybody in the middle sector.
Still a couple of tenths down on Albon though. So Albon's first sector was roaring in that Williams. Middle sector Sainz is quicker, but he's a couple of tenths down, as is Alonso, getting a flying lap on the board in the Aston Martin. All on the hard tyres. They'll recalibrate at the end of Q1, and all these runners we're talking about should make it through. Leclerc jumps to 7th, picking up a slipstream from Albon as he comes across the line as the Williams starts another lap. Sainz picks up the slipstream from Sargent, and he jumps into 4th. So no one yet can get on terms with Alex Albon at the top of the times.
Fantastic from Alex Albon as Alonso crosses the line and comes into 7th. This is the sound of Nico Hulkenberg as he rounds the final corner. The Curve Alboreto to the line for Hulkenberg, and it's 14th in his Haas just in front of Oscar Piastri. A reminder, we are looking to eliminate the bottom 5 drivers. So if you do not get yourself up into the top 15 come the end of the next 10.5 minutes, you will be eliminated, and that is where you will start the race tomorrow. So at the moment, Tsunoda, Lawson, as we await times from Stroll, Verstappen and Ocon are all in that elimination zone.
And Alonso will join them because his lap time has just been deleted. So Alonso goes down to the bottom with no time on the board. With Verstappen, who's been in the pits, he's just left again on a hard tyre once again. He's got to get a time on the board, does Max. Stroll is on a flying lap in the other Aston Martin. So Alonso's lap time deleted also for the second Lesmo.
This is the sound of Lando Norris coming down towards the final corner, and he was behind the Alpine, which was towards the left-hand side as you approach the corner. Norris not quite sure which way to go, and it all gets a little bit dicey as Norris weaves left and right into the braking zone. The McLaren does get through on the Alpine, but a bit of a hairy moment there for the McLaren and the Alpine.
Yeah, they're both just looking to wind up a lap on the next lap, but Ocon didn't want to give up his truck position, and Norris fancied it. Almost came together down towards the final corner, but they are okay. Ocon, though, is in the bottom 5 still, with now 9 minutes to go. Got to get a lap in. You don't want to be relying on the final lap. We see sometimes traffic, we see other times lap times being deleted or yellow flags. There's plenty that can go wrong if you need to get a final lap in. You don't want to be in that perilous position, and that's why Max Verstappen is starting another flying lap now, flat out through Curva Grande up to the second chicane. He's just got to get one on the board. That Red Bull is easily quick enough.
Yeah, and already finding time, fastest of anybody in that first sector, looking for a 9th pole position for the Dutchman this year. Just to show how perilous he has been throughout as he makes his way through the first Lesmo into the braking zone of the second Lesmo. That is where his lap time was deleted last time around for exceeding track limits. He manages to keep it neat and tidy this time around. The DRS, the rear wing flap, opens to give you a little bit of extra speed down the straight towards the Ascari chicane, left then right as he manhandles that Red Bull through the Ascari chicane and down the back straight. He's going to be able to get a little bit of a toe off the car in front as well, which moves that to the inside line as Verstappen sweeps round the final corner and manages to keep once again all four wheels within the white line. The gravel is to your left though, so that deters you from exceeding the track limits there, and across the line for Verstappen, just shy of 3.5 tenths quicker than his teammate Sergio Perez to put Verstappen at the top, a 1:21.5.
Yeah, so Perez did manage to pip Albon. Albon tried to respond but didn't improve on the latest lap. I don't know if Verstappen was definitely within track limits on that lap either. Again at Les Mo 2, it was very, very close at the very least, but he stands at the top for now. Alonso crosses the line in the Aston Martin and jumps to third, so that's best of the rest for the moment. And Ocon is on a better lap, now shuffled down to 18th position. Oh!
And he's into the gravel on the exit of Ascari. He keeps his foot planted though and carries on through as the gravel shoots into the air. He leaves a puff of smoke behind him, but he's still carrying the speed through the final corner. He could have lost a load of time doing that. He's down in 18th at the moment. He's 1.7 seconds off on his last time around to the line, and he lost all of his time in that final sector, but he did still improve his lap time overall.
Yeah, he's got a lot more to come though. Esteban Ocon goes sideways through the gravel. Exit of Ascari is not the one, and there's a long straight as well that you lose out on all the way down. So Ocon tumbles down to 19th because the two Alpha Tauris have gone again, and Tsunoda's jumped to 5th, and Lawson, making his second Grand Prix this weekend, is up into 7th, within a tenth of Yuki Tsunoda. So they're pushing each other very, very hard, those two at the moment.
Yeah, the sound you just heard was a replay of Ocon going into the gravel, just lost the car coming out of the exit of Ascari, snap on the steering wheel, corrected it, but ran out wide, and the right-hand side of that car dragging through the gravel as a result.
Both Alpines in the bottom 5. Power-sensitive circuit that they're not expecting to be particularly strong on, but they haven't had good qualifyings for a while, and they certainly won't be banking on them both going out in Q1. But so far, Gasly is in the pits in 16th. Piastri, Hulkenberg, Ocon and Stroll, the others in the bottom 5. So Piastri is quite a big gun in recent times to be down there at the moment. Hamilton and Norris 13th and 12th. So they've got work to do as well at this stage.
As Charles Leclerc crosses the line in his Ferrari and puts himself up into 3rd, here's Ocon.
Okay, check right side of the floor, please.
Yeah, copy that. We're on it already.
And that will be for Ocon running through the gravel as Hamilton comes through the second Lesmo and loses the rear a little bit of his Mercedes, runs out wide on the exit curve. You might just get away with that. Have to have another look at it, I think. Do you think he put all four wheels across the line?
I think he was. He had an oversteer, and I don't think that was kept within the track limits there for Hamilton. He's still on it, though, improving in the first and second sector. Pinned through the final part of Ascari without the gravel run of Esteban Ocon. Down a couple of gears, picks up an apex at the final corner, squeezes on the throttle. He's got a bit of margin on the exit of the track there, and Hamilton will jump to 10th. There's more in there for Lewis. He's only 1/10 up on Logan Sargent, who's still sitting in the pits.
Yeah, let's see if he holds on to that lap, though. We'll keep peeled of the messages from race control. But with 5 minutes to go, then as Sainz gets up into 3rd, Ferrari are 3rd and 4th right now in the elimination zone. It's currently Gasly, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Ocon and Lance Stroll, Rosanna.
Yeah, Pierre Gasly on the radio earlier talking to his engineer about vibrations on the brakes. His engineer told him that it's a new set. So, Jolyon, how do you deal with that? Going into qualifying, new brakes, bit of vibrations, somewhat disrupts your flow, I imagine. Yeah,
well, Lance Stroll's had a very disrupted flow all day so far, all weekend. Didn't do FP1, didn't do FP2 because he had a power unit issue. And then if you're not happy with the brakes, you have new pads in or something, then it's very, very tricky as well. It's such a big circuit for the brakes here.
4 minutes to go then for Q1, and Nico Hulkenberg currently on a lap to try and improve and get himself out of the bottom 5 drivers. Gasly at the moment is the first of those to be eliminated, with Kevin Magnussen, Hulkenberg's Haas teammate, on the fringes as well in 15th. In fact, well, the top 14 separated by just over a second, with Verstappen and Perez, the 2 Red Bulls, out in front, followed by the 2 Ferraris. Alonso is 5th, Albon 6th, Tsunoda, Russell, Lawson, Hamilton the top 10 as it currently stands.
Gasly with problems with the brakes, my apologies. Stroll with problems with track limits, and that's why he's still at the back. And he's on a flying lap now, trying to improve. Pierre Gasly's still in the pit, so with those brake issues. He was complaining a lot last year when he was still with AlphaTauri of brakes, and he's very sensitive to it. And at the moment, not able to get himself out on circuit to improve. And Esteban Ocon down in 19th in the Alpine as well, also in the garage. So they're going to go for one final flourish Alpine. At the moment, they're staring at a double Q1 exit.
The two Hasses trying to avoid the same fate as well, although that Haas car in the hands of Nico Hülkenberg has made its way into Q3 more times than you might expect, as Nico Hülkenberg rounds the final corner and crosses the line to set his lap time, and he does get himself up into the top 12. It is 12th, while Magnussen gets into 15th. Still very much at risk though is Kevin Magnussen. Hülkenberg was a little bit of daylight between himself and the elimination zone as Lance Stroll crosses the line and cannot get out of that elimination zone. 17th for the Canadian as Piastri pops up into 11th, but the McLarens haven't been as fast as I expected them to be so far in Q1.
No, I thought they'd have a little bit more. Norris does jump to 4th then, so that's a much better lap from Lando Norris, but Piastri is struggling a little bit, still down in 12th. There's going to be more improvements to come as drivers start to filter out of the pit lane. Valtteri Bottas and Zhou, the two Alfa Romeos, the two Williams heading out, Hamilton heading out again. He's got to improve from 11th place at the moment. Piastri is going to do another lap on that set of hards, but it might be a little bit vulnerable sitting there in 12th. And finally, out go both of those Alpines, and now they're 19th and 20th. This is dismal. They've got to dig something out from here.
I mean, I think the last time Alpine lost both cars in Q1 was back in 2016. I think you were in that race, weren't you, Singapore? It would have been for them, two Alpines together out in Q1, then known as Renault, if we're going to be picky about it. But with a minute and a half left of this Q1 session then, currently the top 15 all get through to Q2. So eliminated would be, as it currently stands, Valtteri Bottas' Alfa Romeo, Lance Stroll's Aston Martin, Pierre Gasly's Alpine, who had a deleted lap, so he'll have to go again. Oscar Piastri as well, who had a deleted lap, down in 19th, and Esteban Ocon, the other Alpine, as they all try and jostle for position to try and find themselves a little bit of track time, and they're going rather slowly, the two Alfa Romeos, into the final corner as they try and find some space with 1 minute remaining.
There should be enough time for everyone to get a flying lap in. 55 seconds left, and the final car is the Alpine of Esteban Ocon now coming into Ascari. So there should be enough time. They all want to slipstream, and they don't want to start playing around into that final corner.
Bottas, Zhou all going for another one as well. Charles Leclerc out there too, but he's rather safe. He's sort of 4/10 up in the top 5, so something to smile about for the home fans. Two Ferraris continuing to showcase their pace, and Leclerc was lighting up the timing screens, and he's just gone second fastest as well. 2/10 back from Verstappen, but at risk, Magnussen, Bottas, Stroll, Gasly, Piastri and Ocon all fighting for a place in Q2.
Bottas has put in a good first sector, man in danger at the moment, in 16th position, but he's put in a really strong first sector. Logan Sargent puts in the best first sector of the session so far in the Williams, both him and Albon flying as well. Not in so much danger just now either. Williams really going strongly around this circuit. It's further down. Lance Stroll is in big trouble. He's out there and he's not improving on this final lap.
Bottas is though 3.5 in the middle sector. Last time, or his best qualifying of the year so far, Valtteri Bottas has been 7th in Hungary when we were having the alternative tyre allocation, as Hülkenberg crosses the line and gets up into 12th in his Haas. Zhou Guanyu and the other Alfa Romeo losing time in the first sector, finding a bit more in the middle sector. So let's see what the two Alphas has got, as Lance Stroll cannot make it through into the next part of qualifying. Bottas gets up into 12th. What can Zhou Guanyu do as he crosses the line? It's 15th. He's still very much at risk. Sargent on an absolute great lap at the moment. Piastri goes up into 8th. Can Sargent convert the final sector through? He absolutely can, as the American rookie gets up into the top 5. Zhou, Magnussen, Stroll will not be participating in Q2. Gasly and Ocon still at risk. They're still coming through the final sector now as they try and find a little bit more time. Ocon just, I think, misses out. 17th only for the Frenchman.
Both gone. Gasly 17th, Ocon 18th. It's a disaster for them. They went right at the end there, and I think they had clean laps as well, but they just weren't particularly quick. Both Alpines gone. That's a shock. And it means Nico Hülkenberg scrapes through in the Haas.
Once again, Hulkenberg gets through while his teammate does not, with the qualifying head-to-head now between the two Hasses, 11-3 in Hulkenberg's favour. But out then in Q1, Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo 16th, Pierre Gasly in the Alpine 17th, Esteban Ocon in the other Alpine 18th, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas 19th, and Lance Stroll, second Q1 elimination of 2023, and he will start the race from 20th and last.
And who made it through to Q2? Liam Lawson. 12th position in the AlphaTauri. Yuki Tsunoda was 4 at the end of that.
Impressive from both.
The Williams was 2nd and 6th. The two Red Bulls stayed in the garage at the end, so they were comfortable through. But Lawson's done well, just a quarter of a second down on Tsunoda. The times really, really close, as they often are in Monza. And Lawson now can switch with the rest of them to the medium tyre.
Yeah, that's what they go to next. The hard can be tossed aside, Rosanna, as we head into Q2, and it's the medium compound for all drivers.
Absolutely, and I think the ones to watch in the next part of qualifying, and hopefully the Q3 part of qualifying, is McLaren. They were struggling on the medium and hard tyres during practice, but they think they're going to get quicker on the softer compound. So we were wondering where they were in that particular session. Of course, we had some laps deleted, Oscar Piastri falling foul of that. But in terms of other drivers to keep an eye on, Sergio Perez, whilst he finished 5th in that segment of qualifying, he actually was told by his engineer that he's been over-pushing at turn 1, which is then compromising him into turn 2. So over-pushing, we've heard that before, haven't we, with Sergio Perez, especially when track limits are concerned. And I'm thinking back to Austria. That was a torrid time for the Mexican driver, so he needs to be focused but not go over that limit this afternoon.
Yeah, over pushing maybe at the first chicane is taking too much speed in on the brakes, most likely, and then he's not able to. He's compromising his line through the second corner of that chicane and losing on the way up to the second chicane, all the way on the run through Curva Grande, flat out. I wonder if that's what they're seeing on the data. That's what over pushing to me would be. You're trying to take too much on the brakes. It's an important circuit for the brakes, but you don't want to compromise your exits either, because you need speed on the subsequent straight.
I tell you what, the Tifosi are absolutely loving it around the Autodromo Nazionale Monza. Not, of course, the result they wanted in that particular part of qualifying, with Charles down in 3rd and Sainz down in 7th. I'm sure they'll be hoping for more as we get into the sharper and pointier end of qualifying.
Absolutely. Well, while we have this little pause as we get ready for Q2, message from Race Control. The incident involving cars 16 and 55, so Leclerc and Sainz, investigated after the session. Now, this is going to be failing to follow race director's instructions for a maximum lap time. Now, Jolyon, is this what we were discussing in FP3 to try and avoid basically having a messy quali session of having to drive, whether it's an in-lap or an out-lap, at a certain speed or to a certain lap time? That's
what it is, and I'm not entirely sure where they have gone too slowly, but it seems like both Ferrari drivers have done a lap. Presumably an out-lap is what the FIA are particularly worried about. Drivers going so slowly to try and find a slipstream and blocking others that are on fast laps, and it becomes a bit of a potential danger hazard. So I wonder if it's that for Ferrari, but it's both of them, which is also a little bit strange. So I wonder if one has led out the other one, and they've started to go slower, and they've both ended up retreating together towards the oncoming cars behind. We won't know, I think, until the end of qualifying. That'll be one for the stewards. For now, it doesn't matter who's on the top of the times, because all of that goes fairly out the window. Alex Albon, 2nd place. That's brilliant in the Williams, but you've got to recalibrate on the medium tyre. They work differently. You find that you pick up grip in different areas. Sometimes the rear axle more commonly is the one where you find the grip, and you've got to stay on top of that as well. Adapt as your car improves.
Now we're just hearing from Zhou.
Science, man, what is he doing?
So this was as he was preparing for a hot lap, Zhou, down into the final corner, and then Sainz just comes steaming down the inside and passes him in his Ferrari.
Well, Sainz was going slowly into the final corner, and then Zhou came past him, and then Sainz suddenly gunned it and went back again. So that's why Zhou was on the radio saying, what is he doing? What's going on? And I wonder if that was Sainz going slowly, which he definitely was on an outlap, and then suddenly got the hurry up. The team said, well, maybe you're going too slowly here and we could be in trouble. And as it turns out, they are in trouble. And I wonder if he suddenly realised at the end that he had to just gun it to the line, to the safety car lines. It's basically a lap. And I wonder if that was it. Sainz going too slowly and suddenly got a bit of a hurry up and confused Joe, and yeah, it wasn't ideal.
I've just been speaking to Kevin Magnussen in the Haas in the media pen, and he was saying they were nowhere on the hard tyre this afternoon, but they had good pace on the soft. That's what their expectation was this weekend. And he said it's just typical that it happens on the alternative tyre allocation weekend. So this is the problem, isn't it? You've got to be good across all three tyres. You can't just be hoping to get on that soft tyre and set a blistering lap in qualifying. There's a lot of skill across all the compounds that the drivers have at their disposal this weekend.
Yeah, 9th time Magnussen's been eliminated from Q1 this season. Qualifying has definitely not been his favourite day of the week in 2023. But that's the thing, I'm liking this alternative tyre allocation, because we are getting we're getting a slightly jumbled up grid, and we're only just through into Q2. Because look at the McLarens, they're struggling on the hard compounded tyre, not so great on the medium, but they come alive a little bit more on the softs. But you've got to get through to Q3 before you can get the softs.
That's the fun. And who would have thought from the early rounds of this season we'd be at Monza, and on pure pace, there's no penalties applied right now, but on pure pace, 2 Alpines and an Aston Martin are knocked out in Q1. That's where we're at this year. And on pure pace, both Williams are in the top 6 and an AlphaTauri's 4th.
And I think absolute credit as well for Liam Lawson, in only his 2nd qualifying so far, has made it into Q2, finished that last session in 12th. So let's see what the young Kiwi racer can do after coming in midway through the weekend in Zandvoort last weekend to replace an injured Daniel Ricciardo. Lawson getting another run out here, and we expect will also be in for Singapore, but we wait for confirmation on that one. But Lawson getting the chance to show exactly what he has got to his Red Bull bosses and to the Formula One paddock, with some seats up for grabs next year. But Q2 then underway, and we are already ticking down the clock. 13 minutes and 24 seconds remain. No one's in a mad rush to get out of the pits, but we are now starting to hear cars firing up as first out of his garage is the 2-time champion Max Verstappen, and they will all be bolting on the yellow-walled medium compound of tyre, as is mandated by this alternative tyre allocation that we are running this weekend.
So off they go again. Now everyone on the same run plan. As soon as Verstappen goes, the rest of the field all follow him out. So no one wants to be the guy at the front giving a slipstream to effectively the whole pack. He has no slipstream here, Verstappen, but everyone else will, because they're now line astern, leaving the pits behind the championship leader. It's actually quite a sensible way of doing it. Verstappen won't need a slipstream to make it into the top 10, so he could just go and allow everyone else an equal playing field just behind him, all on the medium tyre. And the crucial thing on this first run is to not lose a lap time for track limits as well. You've got to feel the grip and balance on a different tyre, the medium. The grip level now will come up. We'll feel a little bit better. It will feel better still if you're into the top 10 and you can put on a soft. But for now, we're in the middle ground. You want to get a banker in, but you've also got to get an early feel for the car as well, because you can make some small tweaks to the setup when you come back in, and there'll be 2 runs in this Q2 session.
Well, the grandstands are full with Tifosi fans, the Ferrari fans who are here in full support of the Scuderia. Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz running a slightly tweaked livery this weekend as well, with a lot of yellow streaks added to the usual red of Ferrari as they celebrate their sports car win in the 24 Hours of Le Mans earlier this year with a team of drivers, one of them being the former F1 driver and now Ferrari reserve, who's also here, Italian on home soil, Antonio Giovinazzi, who watches on. But Verstappen then crosses the line and will begin his first flyer as the rear wing flies open and then slams shut under braking for turn 1.
Same trio at the front of the field as kicked off the hard-tired Q1 as well. Verstappen, and then Perez, and then Norris, who fills in just behind the 2 Red Bulls. Everyone else funneling behind as well. Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. And we will get a gauge on the first sector. Verstappen through in a 26.9 with no slipstream. Perez fractionally quicker with a slipstream, but only by a couple of hundredths. And the first sector's really your key straight line speed sector.
So everybody's out there, bar the two Mercedes, who have elected to stay in the pit lane a little bit longer and will now automatically run a bit out of sequence. But are they waiting for it all to die down a bit and then perhaps try the old toe and give each other a bit of a slipstream?
Well, they don't need to do that together. They can get us toe off anyone else as well, which is what the rest of the pack are doing. It's only Verstappen out there that hasn't got a toe, as he screams out of Ascari and now winds his way towards the final corner, moves to the left-hand side of the track, will open up the Parabolica or the newly named Curva Alboreto, and through he goes. Used to be a key one for track limits, not anymore. The gravel's moved a lot closer, which is good to see, and Verstappen comes across the line 21.0, 4 tenths clear of his teammate Sergio Perez.
And Norris slots his McLaren up into third as well as the first times come along. Tsunoda follows in fourth, make that fifth as Alex Albon in the Williams once again displays the pace that he has got. This time though on the medium compound of tyre, just a couple of tenths shy of Max Verstappen. Albon slotting up into second. Leclerc and Sainz are both on good laps as well. Fastest of anybody in the first sector for Leclerc, fastest of anybody in the middle sector for Carlos Sainz. Leclerc is first across the line, it's second for the Ferrari man, a 1:21.1, but it's fastest for Carlos Sainz, who goes ahead by less than a tenth of Verstappen, Leclerc, Albon, Perez. But a reminder, we are looking at everybody from 11th downwards in this Q2 session with 9 minutes remaining. It's basically a fight to get yourself into the top 10 and get through for Q3 in that top 10 shootout.
And a hearty cheer from the crowd as a Ferrari driver hits the front in this qualifying session for the first time. Carlos Sainz has been on it this weekend, really, really strong, and dipping now below a 1:21 on the mediums. He ups the pace again and just goes half a tenth quicker than Max Verstappen. Both Mercedes are out on circuit. George Russell and Lewis Hamilton. Is Russell ahead of Hamilton as they're on their outlaps, and Russell running side by side with Max Verstappen down to the final corner. Is Verstappen going to go for another lap, or is he going to come straight back into the pits? He can have a pretty huge slipstream from Russell if he so wishes, but he will keep it to the right hand side, I think, and come in. So it's just Mercedes now with what could well be the track to themselves.
Yeah, well, still to get through to the top 10 then. At the moment, it's Lawson, Sargeant, Bottas and Hamilton and Russell, who, as we've said, are about to start their laps. Russell already heading down into turn one. Rosanna.
Yeah, all drivers on that medium tyre for this part of qualifying. And Liam Lawson, of course, new to the Formula One grid as of last weekend, stepping in for Daniel Ricciardo in the AlphaTauri, being told by his race engineer that they don't have good pace on this particular tyre. And he's been told to keep an eye on his dash. So this is the problem. Certain teams and certain drivers behaving better on certain tyres, and it's Liam Lawson who's going to potentially struggle on the medium, and both AlphaTauris, as Yuki Tsunoda's up in P9. But Lawson's just come back into the pits, and it's fairly quiet out on track at the moment.
Yeah, Russell and Hamilton still going on their laps as Russell screams down the short run to the Ascari chicane, the DRS zone. So the rear wing flap opens up, then closes under braking. 10th and a half up on Hulkenberg's time to get himself into the top 10 for George Russell. So he's not smashing Hulkenberg's time.
Hamilton's not beating Hulkenberg's time at all through two sectors. Both Mercedes, they've not looked particularly strong through practice. They've done their own thing on this first run. 7 minutes left on the clock. They do indeed have the track to themselves, with McLaren on a second flying lap as well, back a little bit. And Russell does a good final sector, goes up to 6th position, which shuffles the McLaren duo down to 8th and 9th. They're not rapid either. And nor is Lewis Hamilton. Comes across the line, only 12th.
Yeah, not happy faces from the pit wall at Mercedes as Toto Wolff, the team principal, watches on. He will have time to go again, and as they start to get ready for the second runs with 6.5 minutes on the clock in the elimination zone then. Hulkenberg in 11th. Hamilton, Lawson, Sargeant and Bottas all at risk at the moment of finding their way out of qualifying. That was Hamilton coming through the final corner then, as he was beginning his lap?
Yeah, so he was beginning his lap. Perez was coming into the pits, and Perez passed him and then peeled off into the pits. Nothing to see there, but it was, slightly frustrating for Hamilton, who didn't want to start a flying lap right on the Mexican's gearbox, but with Perez pitting, there was no case of impeding, in my opinion there.
So Compared to teammates, though, if we're looking at that, Logan Sargent in the Williams, who has been showing an improved form of pace, but combined with Alex Albon's continual rise in pace in that Williams, getting absolute maximum out of it, just shy of 3/10 off of Carlos Sainz's Alex Albon in 4th, but Logan Sargent will need to go again, who is down in 14th at the moment and trying to get his second Q3 appearance in his career, having got there this time last weekend in Zandvoort, but then crashed out while pushing on a fast lap in Q3 and still managed to get that top 10 start though, but it didn't pan out for him in the race and he ended up in the wall once again with a failure this time for his car, putting him out of that race. So pressure mounting on Logan Sargent, the American rookie.
Yeah, definitely a man that needs to perform, and this is a big time for him. His first lap there on the medium was actually slower than what he managed in Q1 on the hard. And everyone else was finding, give or take, half a second.
Yeah, copy.
Hamilton was the other obvious exception, down in 12th, only found 1/10 compared to his hard tyre. So the grip level normally comes up like for like. Tyre compound the same through Q1 and Q2. Track evolution plays a small part. But particularly when you're going from a hard to a medium, you've got to keep finding something. And Hamilton obviously not feeling like he switched on that medium tyre on that run. He's back in the pits now. The sound you can hear was the new set of mediums going on Hamilton. Plenty of time as the drivers all wait to get going again. And I would say Hamilton and now Sargent are the two drivers that really should be looking to get through into Q3. And it seems a bold call, saying Sargent should be looking to get through into Q3, but Albon is there in 4th, Harry. He's within 3/10 of Sainz's benchmark. That Williams is rapid around here.
It is once again impressive from Alex Albon, who was 4th on the grid as well in the Netherlands and has had a couple of top 10 starts, 8th in Silverstone, 9th in Canada for the Thai racer. So watch out for him once again, trying to get through into Q3. But right now looking rather settled and accomplished up there with the Ferraris and the Red Bulls, and ahead of the Mercedes and the Aston Martin, the sole remaining Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. He came into this weekend saying, well, I think it's going to be a tough fight with the Ferraris, with perhaps the Mercedes and the Red Bulls, and right now he finds himself behind the Ferraris, the one Mercedes, the Red Bulls and one Williams as well, currently down in 7th, but ahead of the two McLarens at the moment, Norris and Piastri 8th and 9th, hoping to cling on and get through into Q3 where they believe their car really comes alive, and right now they are on course to do as the engines fire up and the Mercedes leaves its pit garages, both of them in formation, Russell and Hamilton, as the Ferraris and everybody else now screaming out into the pit lane.
Yeah, it looked like the Mercedes were going to be front of the queue, but they've been beaten to the front, and that's not where you want to be. The front of the queue is side by side coming out of the pit lane behind Fernando Alonso and Liam Lawson. Lawson just filtering in behind the Aston Martin driver, almost stationary now. The driver's trying to find a bit of space as they head out. 2.5 minutes on the clock, so plenty of time for them to get a final lap in. Should be under control, and then it's just about putting in a last gasp flyer on this medium tyre, and of course keeping within track limits as well.
Less than half a tenth between Sainz, who's currently fastest, and Verstappen in 2nd. That's setting Q3 up to be quite nice when we switch to the soft tyre. But right now, it is all about who can get through into the top 10. We will eliminate everybody from 11th down to 15th out of the 15 remaining drivers in this session. Bottas last of them.
Everyone's going to be overtaking each other here. We need to be overtaking.
And a message there from Alex Chan to Valtteri Bottas, we need to be overtaking. So they're not happy with their position already. And that just sounds like already we're going to get a bit of chaos in the rundown to the Curva Alboreto.
So there's 1 minute 50 left on the clock as Bottas leaves the garage. So Alfa Romeo obviously a little bit twitchy about whether he will get easily a lap in. It's 1 minute 20 for a flying lap. They've built in enough buffer, but not if everyone starts slowing down.
You need to overtake cars.
Yeah, there's no space. Someone at the front playing the trick. Force people not to get a lap.
So Sainz then thinks there is something afoot with the qualifying tactics as the two Williamses are able to cross the line with just over a minute to spare, with Albon leading Sargent as they make their run down into turns 1 and 2. The AlphaTauri as well of Liam Lawson and Yuki Tsunoda out there trying to get themselves more assured into Q3. Lawson currently 13th and only his second qualifying in Formula 1.
Should be okay for everyone to get the flying lap in still. 50 seconds, 45 seconds left as the final cars come through Ascari. The first cars are into the second chicane. It's Albon at the front of the queue then, with his teammate just behind. So Albon giving Sargent the slipstream on this run, and Sargent into Lesmo 1. A little bit wide on the exit. I think that was okay on track limits, but it was marginal. He's okay on the exit of the second one. He's not improved in the first sector though, Sargent. The man in 14th in a very quick Williams comes down the end of sector 2. And he's a little bit adrift still. This isn't good enough at the moment.
As the rear end slides slightly for Logan Sargent through the left, and the right-hander of Ascari clouts the little bit of the dust on the exit from the gravel, but carries the speed forward in the rundown to the final corner. Tsunoda is finding time currently in 10th. Hamilton as well has set his own personal best and is finding more time in the middle sector. Down in 12th at the moment, Lewis Hamilton looking to get through into Q3. Sargent can't do it into 14th. Tsunoda can, gets himself up into 9th. Can he hold on to it when we see where Lewis Hamilton comes out? He's on the run down to the final corner.
Hamilton is finding good time. We ride on board with him to the final corner then. He's done a good first sector, very decent first sector, an improved middle sector as well, as Russell does the fastest final sector in the other Mercedes to go 5th. Here comes Lewis Hamilton, currently 12th.
Up into 5th for the 7-time champion. He skates through into Q2 as the checkered flag is out. Leclerc goes fastest ahead of Sainz. What can Liam Lawson do in only his second qualifying in Formula 1? It's not going to be Q3 for Lawson. It's 12th at the moment. Sargent is out. Hulkenberg is out. Tsunoda gets knocked out because Piastri skates through in the McLaren up into 8th as Verstappen retakes the fastest lap. Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo crosses the line, found time but could only pip Sargent, and the Alfa Romeo man gets into 14th as Perez slides across the line to go 4th. And that is the end of Q2. And outs, only just Tsunoda, Lawson, the two AlphaTauris, 11th and 12th. Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas, Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, and Logan Sargent will be disappointed with 15th on the grid as his teammate finished that session up in 5th.
Yeah, that is well and truly not good enough for Sargent at this stage of his season. He's got to be doing better than that. 10 places, and actually a good sort of 7/10 down on his teammate. So didn't improve on that final lap and got into Q3 last time. Has not repeated it here. So Sargent not alleviated any pressure. The rest of them, I think you'd say, would be the ones that you might have expected to go out in Q2. Decent job from Lawson, 12th, 10th and a half down on Tsunoda. That's very respectable from him. He can be happy, and those AlphaTauris can look at the points for tomorrow. They'll be staring at the back of the top 10 on the grid. And in 10th place, Lando Norris just squeezed through 13,000th, quicker than Tsunoda there. Didn't improve as well on his final lap. So Norris, maybe a little bit of a lucky boy to stay in this. And now McLaren can put on the soft, where they think they're going to be a little bit more competitive.
Oh, well, it all got quite exciting there at the end. Let's hear from Logan Sargent, though.
Sorry. I was down, so I went all in the parabolica. I missed it.
The thing is, he already wasn't on for a great lap. It was not good from the word go, that one. And he did miss it by a good chunk in the final sector. But he's a man under pressure, and you can hear it in his voice. That will not do him any favours at the contract table.
No, he certainly can, as Sargent gets released from the weighbridge and returns to the garage. He will no longer be taking part in qualifying. His teammate will, though, Rosanna, and it got quite heated towards the end there. I'm looking forward to Q3 now.
Yes, so am I have to say. Interesting, isn't it, how Logan Sargent didn't make it through in that particular part of qualifying, but Williams has spent a decent amount of time practicing on that medium tyre because they were focusing on getting through to Q3. They knew that was the tyre they needed to perform on if they were going to do it. Of course, Alex Albon up in P5 in that part of qualifying, but out for Logan Sargent, and that frustration very evident on his team radio. I've just been listening into Pierre Gasly. Let's hear from Lando Norris.
Yeah, I got over.
Latin, we just went through. Just about, yeah, I saw that.
And yeah, I was just hearing from Pierre Gasly in the media pen saying that they already knew it was going to be tough to get through to Q2 today. So a really difficult day for Alpine. Not sure what they can do tomorrow, but they're going to have to hope that they can haul that Alpine up through the grid to maybe be on the cusp of scoring some points tomorrow.
Gasly's a race winner here.
Let's not forget.
In a
what race
chaotic race in the AlphaTauri of 2021. And of course, anything can happen, but they're going to need something to happen to come through from 17th and 18th on the grid, the two Alpines. Norris said he got stuffed by Bottas there on his outlap, and I think that was Bottas. We heard he was told to go overtaking on his outlap, and he was overtaking all the way into the Parabolica at the end of his outlap, whilst Norris was waiting patiently behind Perez for his turn to launch into a flyer. Suddenly through came Bottas, shut the gap, and that is why Lando couldn't improve on the final lap. He started pretty close behind the Alfa Romeo, and Bottas didn't knock him out either, stayed 14th.
I was about to say before that message, it seemed for Monza qualifying fairly neat and tidy, all things considered. There wasn't too much tripping over each other. But now, of course, we go down to 10 cars, so theoretically we shouldn't really get any of that silliness.
Should be okay, but someone has to go out first, and in Q1 and Q2 it's a little bit simpler. We had in that one Verstappen went out first at the start of Q2, and he could afford to because he has pace in hand to make it in the top 10, and he did a good job. And actually with a slipstream on the second run, found a little bit more time, went back to the top, only by 400ths, but found a little bit. Second run, Albon had a bit of margin, so he went out first and sacrificed maybe a 10th or two there and tried to help his teammate. Didn't work out. Now it's the top 10. There's no safety net of I only need to be in the top 10. This is where you settle your grid position. So everyone waits because they don't want to be that first car. And that's why it then gets frantic when you wait and wait and wait. Someone's like, right, we've got to just go. And then it gets, with 19 cars or 14 cars behind, or now even 9 cars behind, it can get a little bit tight.
I was really interested, Joey, in hearing the race engineers on the radio during that final part of Q2 telling their drivers to overtake. I was always under the impression there was a bit of a gentleman's agreement, but that seems to be kind of falling away in recent times. Would you agree?
Well, Rosanna, the age of gentlemen in Formula One has fallen away.
When Palmer
left,
let me tell you a story of when I was on the grid, Rosanna. The real days of the chest.
It was 19...
The long, hot summer of 2016, where drivers were gentlemen were drivers. It's cutthroat in Formula One now. It's cutthroat.
And the last time 2 Enstone cars were knocked out in Q1.
Yeah, gentlemen were drivers, Harry. The long, hot summer of 2016. A vintage year. Maybe that's where I was going wrong. Maybe I was too gentlemanly. Maybe this is the nub of it.
There is a thing about being too nice. Like, you can't be a nice F1 driver, surely. I mean, I've spent a lot of time with you.
Yeah,
but you're not. You know, you've got to be brutal. You've got to be cutthroat.
The saying is, nice guys finish last. I didn't finish last.
We should leave it at that.
Or knock down Q1. well, the Tifosi are up on their feet and celebrating because they have got 2 Ferraris through into Q3 as a former Ferrari man, a 3-time race winner. Giancarlo Fisichella watches on from the Ferrari garage. Ferrari looking good. I think we can. I feel I've been a bit nervous to say that all weekend long because it could just fall away last minute. We weren't quite sure what they were doing, but they're up there in the fight.
They're there, aren't they? They're constantly there. On the soft tyre, I think that'll help them a little bit more as well. I would say you've got, and you're never going to say Verstappen's not the favourite at any given moment in 2023. So Verstappen's there. Who can beat him? Well, it does look like it's maybe the Ferraris. Albon is an outside shot for doing something heroic in this Q3. We're waiting to see what McLaren can do, but from what we've seen on the hards and the mediums, they're a long way away, actually. So I can't see them finding that amount of pace on the soft, but they were quite handy yesterday on it. I think it's Ferrari or Verstappen.
All right, then. Well,
who are you going for, Harry?
Well, you've just given 2 options. You haven't given one.
I've asked you first.
Oh, right, okay. Pick for pole.
Yeah.
It's going to be... Carlos Sainz, I think, is going to get pole position.
Rosanna, who are you going for?
Oh, sorry, I'm just listening in to Esteban Ocon reliving his qualifying session.
Ocon's out.
It's definitely not getting pole.
I still need to hear what's going on. Who am I going for? Yeah, you went for 3, I think, there, Jodie, and we're saying Ferrari or Verstappen. I am going to say Verstappen, I think. I think my heart says Charles Leclerc, given we're on home soil for Ferrari, but I think the head is saying Max Verstappen.
And Jolyon?
I'm agreeing with you, Harry. I'm going to go Carlos Sainz.
Are you?
Yeah, he's been rapid this weekend. Leclerc actually was ahead of him in Q2 for the first time pretty much this whole weekend. Leclerc was the stronger, but I just think Sainz has been hooked up. All now leaving the pits, 10 minutes left on the clock, soft tyres on the cars, grip coming up. This is Monza.
This is where it really lives up to its name, the Temple of Speed, on the fastest rubber out there in the fastest session of the weekend, and the fight for pole about to commence. Out on track then, the 2 Red Bulls of Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez, the 2 Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, the 2 McLarens of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, the 2 Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, and the sole remaining Williams of Alex Albon, and the sole remaining Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. Well, we've done our picks for pole. It might well be Verstappen in the end, who has shown once again his pace throughout the weekend. But Carlos Sainz and both Ferraris giving the Tifosi and Formula One fans in general something to hope for. It's tighter than we thought it would be as they make their way slowly, gearing up, getting heat into the tyres and finding that all-important positioning on track.
So I think Red Bull are going to grab it by the horns. Excuse the pun. Verstappen is at the front. Perez is second, and I predict they will swap positions for the second run. So Perez will tow Verstappen around if their championship leader so wishes, and that means that everyone can be in the position they want to be in, tucked in behind another car, doesn't matter who it is, and it's going to be status quo behind Verstappen, who has the track to himself out front. He's now winding it up to the final corner. Done quite a steady outlap as well here, making sure he doesn't overcook those soft tyres. Warm weather, a little bit fragile, the softs. Now he picks up the pace through the final corner and unleashes a pole position attempt.
DRS flies open the rear wing flap on the back of that Red Bull for Verstappen as he begins his lap. 5.79 kilometres, 3.6 miles around this 11 cornered track, 7 to the right, 3 to the left here in Monza. We're about 9 miles northeast of Milan in the Royal Parks of Monza, surrounded by the greenery. The grandstands are full. It is a sea of red this time around for the Tifosi, as Max Verstappen will be the first to lay his marker down, running the alternative tyre allocation. Everyone's on the soft tyre, and coming out of the De La Roja chicane though for Verstappen, he dips a wheel onto the gravel, loses the rear end, but catches it in the nick of time.
Right on the edge there, Max Verstappen. He's on a very quick first sector, only beaten now by Charles Leclerc by 1/10, but he's quicker than his teammate, he's quicker than Norris. Now Sainz is the quickest man through the first sector, and Verstappen was out of shape in the middle sector then. Comes through, he's still quicker than Perez, so he kept his foot in as he was sideways through the exit of the second chicane, but will that cost him something compared to the Ferraris, who are flying at the moment?
If Verstappen can still get pole position, having dipped a wheel into the gravel, then you just know what kind of a season he's having. But round the final corner then, Leclerc, fastest of anybody in the middle sector as Verstappen crosses the line, and it's a 1:26.31 as an opening gambit from Max Verstappen. Sergio Perez can't beat him though in second. Norris slides into third. All eyes on Charles Leclerc then as he makes the run down to the final corner, rounds it, right hand down on the throttle to the line for the Monegasque racer, and it should be provisional pole.
But don't discount Carlos Sainz just behind his teammate. Leclerc goes to the top then by just under a tenth, and now Sainz beats him. Ferrari 1-2 in Monza.
And there is absolutely nothing in it either. 32 thousandths of a second between the two Ferraris as the engineers in Ferrari and the mechanics in the garage applaud that effort. It is currently a 1-2 for Ferrari on home soil. Verstappen third, Russell pops up into fourth ahead of Albon, Perez, Norris, Piastri, Alonso, the 9 drivers, and Hamilton to settle lap time in 10th.
That was the sound of Verstappen kissing the gravel. No more than a kiss. looked a bit more substantial from the outside. Little bit of opposite lock, just hovering on the steering wheel, jostling the rear as it stepped out over the gravel. But it wasn't a huge moment for Verstappen. Might have cost him, I would say, less than a tenth of that. And he is 0.099 off the provisional pole. But he didn't have a slipstream on that run. And that will give him maybe a tenth, maybe two on the second run. So there's more in there for Verstappen, but he's got one lap to try and unlock it to stop Ferrari having a front row lockout in Monza. And this is no shock. They've looked really good through practice. Hey, aren't we clever? We both said Sainz would be on pole. One lap in, one more to go, and it's Carlos Sainz on provisional pole.
Oh, could it happen? Could they do it on home soil after another tough year for Ferrari? Not to the standard of where they believe the prancing horse should be, fighting for wins week in, week out. Well, I mean, nobody's really fighting for wins week in, week out against Max Verstappen and Red Bull, but Ferrari need a turn of form. And right now, to display it here in the heart of Ferrari land, it would be quite something. But they're peeling back into the pits now to have a quick pause before we head out for the final runs with 5 minutes remaining.
So Sainz, Leclerc and Verstappen, the top three, separated by a tenth, basically. Just under a tenth, those three. Russell managed to get into fourth, ahead of Alex Albon in fifth, who got himself ahead of Perez in sixth. Then it's the two McLarens, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton and Alonso, the champions at the bottom end of the top 10 in the first runs. One more run can shuffle that around. The times are all pretty close, down to 7th, and Lando Norris are within half a second of the outright pace set by Carlos Sainz. It's all to play for. Sergio Perez, 6th in the Red Bull. If he is to go at the front of the train on this run, it's not going to help him out to try and clamber the order, so we'll see what Red Bull do about that.
Ferrari looking for their first front row start since Monaco 2022. That time it was Leclerc on pole, Sainz in P2. They did technically get 1-2 in Austin, but then Leclerc got a grid penalty.
The first front row lockout?
Yeah.
Since Monaco 22. And what happened in the race?
Well,
don't talk about it.
Didn't
Don't
quite
talk about
go the way
race
for Charles Leclerc. We won't talk about that. We won't dwell on it. He's smiling in his cockpit. There's a glint in his eye for Charles Leclerc as he waits patiently with the fan calling him and his visor open and having a little look around his garage as the Ferrari engineers and mechanics watch on, and the Mexican waves are in full flow in the grandstands. They really are enjoying it. They're absolutely packed as the sun beats down here in Monza. The weather has been superb, and it is now ramping up to the pinch point in qualifying. Who will start the Italian Grand Prix from pole tomorrow afternoon? Well, in less than 3 minutes time we will have the answers. Standout performances so far regardless, I think it has to be said once again from Alex Albon. He's currently 5th, if he can even hold on to that, to follow up a 4th place qualifying in Zandvoort. Sensational.
That's disappointing, isn't it?
Well,
4th in Zandvoort. Got to repeat that in Monza. No, he's been very strong, Albon. Very strong once again. He's had such a good season. You kind of expect it now with the performance of the car. He's delivering every week. I think at some point we've got to be less surprised that Albon's still here and mixing it with some of the front runners. Williams have made a huge step, and right now he's ahead of a Red Bull, he's ahead of a Mercedes, he's ahead of both McLarens as they filter out for the final lap.
The round of applause from the grandstand, that can only mean one thing: a Ferrari is driving past you. Sainz and Leclerc both leaving the pit lane. Leclerc this time ahead of Sainz as he heads through the right-hander of Curva Grande.
Alonso is the driver leading them round. So it's Alonso, then Leclerc, then is Max Verstappen, and Sergio Perez only leaves the pits now with 2 minutes 15. He's got plenty of time to get a lap on the board, an outlap and then a flyer before the checkered flag, but he will not lead the pack round. Red Bull switching it up because I think they can't allow Sergio Perez not to have a tow. So he's going to go with the McLarens. I don't think the tow's been absolute night and day, an advantage like we've seen in the past, but certainly preferential over having no tow. Maybe as a 10th, maybe. I don't think it's a huge amount more. And the Mercedes, they're running at the back of the field. They've often been doing their own thing in this qualifying, and they are the last cars out there. It's Russell and then Hamilton leaving the pits now with 1:50 left. They can't mess around on this outlap.
The screams from the grandstands. People have travelled miles just to see Ferrari. There's signs up there saying we've travelled from Brazil over 10,000 kilometres just to watch Ferrari. Imagine travelling all that way to then see a front row lockout for the Rosso Corsa red Ferraris. Wouldn't that be something? But with 1:10, it is now time to find out. They're on their out laps. Everybody is out there on the soft compounder tyre, the red walled rubber, as determined by the alternative tyre allocation that we are running this weekend. Less sets available for everybody, 11 per team. We've ran the hard in Q1, the medium in Q2, and now it is all eyes on the soft compound tyre as Charles Leclerc starts his lap and makes his way through Curva Grande.
Yeah, cheers go up as Leclerc comes through the first corner. It's Sainz v Leclerc v Verstappen, surely for pole position in this one, and Leclerc has done a huge first sector. He's absolutely flown there. He's a couple of tenths up on what Sainz managed before.
He's absolutely fine. Wait and see what the split is. Verstappen not as fast, about a tenth off for Verstappen in the first sector. Carlos Sainz about to come through as well in the first sector. Out through the second Lesmo for Charles Leclerc. He's still fastest of anybody, but it is tight.
Sainz 300ths down on his teammate through the first sector. Leclerc's done the quickest middle sector as well. He's now a tenth up on Carlos Sainz's own best. Swings it through Ascari, left and then right and then left again. This is good from Leclerc.
The man who was on pole here last year in Monza looking to do it again, Charles Leclerc. He hasn't looked like he's had the pace of his teammate throughout the weekend, but he is coming alive right now. But Sainz goes fastest of anybody in the middle sector. What Charles Leclerc got, his final lap, and across the line for Leclerc, it's provisional pole for the Monegasque. A Ferrari up front, but what can Carlos Sainz do? He's currently down in second, but Max Verstappen is putting in mighty pace as well as he comes across the line to deny Leclerc by half a tenth. Max Verstappen on top for now, but it's Carlos Sainz who goes to the top of the timing screens. It's pole position for the Spaniard. It's pole position for Ferrari in Monza on home soil, and it's Carlos Sainz who gets the job done.
What a lap, 13 thousandths in it. Sainz pips Verstappen. Leclerc looked like he was on a mighty lap, but ended up 700ths short as the times still fly in, and Perez got himself to fourth. Albon is fifth, but can Russell get himself back up? Yes, he does, up to fourth. So great effort from George Russell. Lewis Hamilton, the last man across the line, goes to eighth. Pole position for Sainz, pips Verstappen. It might be a different story tomorrow, but it's a good story today.
His first pole of the year, his first pole since Austin in 2022, and let's hear from him.
Tell me we have it. Yeah, we have it. Tell me we have it. Oh, yes, we have it. Good job. Vamos. Yeah. Wow.
I love to hear the euphoria in a team radio celebration, and that was huge from Sainz. And he has been so quick all the way through this weekend. He so deserves it. Fastest man in 2 of the 3 practice sessions. He's been edging Leclerc out.
It's like he's won the race. His hand is out of the cockpit, down towards the final corner. You can't not be happy for him.
He's a Ferrari driver on pole at Monza. This is the stuff you dream of.
This is the pinnacle.
He will start the Italian Grand Prix on pole in a Ferrari. It's huge for him.
Sainz pipped you by 100th. Wowzers.
Tight quali, Dad.
That was a really tight quali, but that was a hell of a lap. Well done, mate. Be proud of that. Nice shot, front row.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a quick overall lap, but let's wait and see tomorrow.
Well, Verstappen then confirming just how tight that qualifying is. Now, if you remember in Q2, the incident involving the 2 Ferraris basically driving probably a little bit too slow around the track, that was being investigated, and that has now been confirmed as no further action. So happy days, breathe a sigh of relief for the crowd that are up on their feet as Carlos Sainz removes his headrest, gets out of his cockpit in Parc Fermé, and makes it a 23rd pole position for Ferrari at Monza.
Yeah, the stewards looked at that and thought, you know what, that thing that we were looking at with Ferrari's going too slow, we are not penalising them now. Sainz has put it on pole. You wouldn't get a less popular decision at all. Cheers go up as he waves to the crowd, and they will start there from pole position. And it is huge. First and third on the grid. Verstappen comes over and they have a handshake. Former teammates, of course. Verstappen didn't seem too bothered that he's not on pole for this one. He knows he's probably got the best race car tomorrow. And they were split by barely anything.
Now, Rosanna, I don't want to say we told you so, but we both had Sainz for pole.
I know, I was waiting for this. Look, well done to you guys and well done to Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. He had it, and he had it yesterday, and he had it again in FP3. He has looked the man to beat. But, as you said, Harry, Max Verstappen standing pretty calm in terms of tomorrow's Grand Prix. They'll line up alongside each other on the front row of the grid. How long can Carlos keep Max behind him? That's a big question. But wow, what a result for Ferrari. And I'm just watching as Fred Vasseur makes his way through the Ferrari garage, being congratulated by some of their VIP guests. He said he was going to try and keep the team calm this weekend. Might be a little tricky now.
And just absorbing all of this sound, the cheers, the support for Carlos Sainz. Helmet off, chugs a bit of water, getting ready for his post-race, post-qualifying interview. The race, as you say, Jolie, it might be a different story, but right now Ferrari are going to soak this up massively as he heads over to the team to get the support. Handshakes all round, smiles all round. Fantastic from Sainz, who will start this Grand Prix ahead of Verstappen. Charles Leclerc in third as well, so it's two Ferraris in the top three, and Leclerc makes his way actually out onto the main straight and to the grandstands to give everybody a wave and a cheer. Russell fourth, Perez fifth, Albon, Piastri, Hamilton, Norris and Alonso the top 10. That we will hear from the top three shortly to see how it all unfolded. But I think a shout out as well outside of the furore of Ferrari has to go to Alex Albon for a 6th place finish. Perez might have been hoping for more, having had a better Friday of recent times. He'll start this race from 6th. A good qualifying once again in a row from George Russell. 3rd last weekend, 4th this weekend. So impressive stuff continues for the British racer, who's just re-signed his Mercedes contract, and Alonso rounds out the top 10. But it's time to hear then from our top three. Let's hear from Charles Leclerc. He's speaking to a man who's run around here before.
Incredible feeling. I was asking, how was your lap? You were all alone. Everyone was following you. How was your lap? Less than a tenth from pole position, but only 3rd in the grid. How is your feeling about this amazing?
I mean, my feeling can only be amazing with the tifosi, of course. On my side, I'm a bit disappointed. I obviously wanted to be first, but seeing that Carlos is P1 is great for Ferrari. He has done an incredible job all weekend. I've been struggling quite a bit more. FP1, FP2, FP3, and qualifying I managed to put everything together, so I was really happy. Then unfortunately in Q3 I didn't have a slipstream. That probably this cost us 1 position at least, but it's life. We should be happy, especially on my side. I've been struggling a lot, and yeah, they are just incredible. I don't smile very often when I'm P3, but obviously being here and having that much support is an amazing feeling.
So I guess there is the right feeling to be on the podium tomorrow, right?
Exactly, and we'll try to do 1st and 2nd with Carlos. So we'll do dai, finisco in italiano, che ovviamente qua siamo in Italia. Ragazzi, grazie mille perché ve lo giuro che prima della qualifica io stavo faticando, non pensavo di essere così vicino alla pole. Alla fine Carlos ha fatto un lavoro incredibile questo weekend. Domani c'è la gara e faremo di tutto per avere i 2 posti più alti. Grazie, forza Ferrari. Ciao.
Grazie mille, bravo.
Dave Valsecchi, the GPT champion and a man who's won around here before, doing the questioning. Charles Leclerc answering in English and in Italian. Let's hear from 2nd place man Verstappen.
Against the 2 Ferrari, At one moment you were on pole, and then Carlos beat your lap time. How was in the track today?
Yeah, it was good. I think we made some good improvements compared to yesterday. And in qualifying, you could see every qualifying session it was very tight. So I'm happy to be second today.
And about tomorrow, you are ready to fight because you have the two Ferrari, all the grandstands here. Will be not so easy for you tomorrow,
of course.
right?
I mean, but it's nice to see. And of course, tomorrow we'll try, of course, to win the race. Normally we have a quick race car, but let's first, just enjoy today, and then we'll focus on tomorrow.
Congratulations for the first row.
Thank you.
Grazie. Carlos, what an amazing lap. Tell us about your driving, because in the middle sector you were just phenomenal. Probably is there where you catch your pole position today.
Wow, honestly, it's been such an intense qualifying, especially Q3. We all three went for it. We were very, very on the limit, and in that last lap, I knew I had some lap time to come in Ascari and Parabolica. I went for it. And it worked well, thank God, because I really pushed hard in that last lap.
And tell me about this. I mean, goosebumps sometimes, right?
Goosebumps since I crossed the finish line, the whole in lap, watching the crowd, and obviously getting out of the car and seeing this. I haven't stopped the goosebumps now, so it's incredible. But in the hotel, arriving to the track, everywhere we go, it's just noise, support, and encouragement, and it's the best feeling you can have as a driver, as an athlete.
And about tomorrow, are you aiming that podium up there?
Yeah. That's the number one target. Tomorrow I'm going to give it everything to hold on to that P1. A good start, a good first stint, and see if we can battle Max. Normally in the long runs he's quicker, but I'm going to give it all.
Thank you so much. Congratulations. Pole position, Carlos Sainz.
Grazie a tutti.
Davide Valsecchi asking the questions to your top three this afternoon in Monza, and what an afternoon it has proved to be. Carlos Sainz on top on home soil for Ferrari, and as you can hear, the Tifosi, the Ferrari fans, absolutely loving it. That is part of the job. Part one is done. Of course, part two, the Italian Grand Prix, comes tomorrow, and Carlos Sainz says he's ready to battle Max, but we know that Max Verstappen has a quick race car. Charles Leclerc in P3, still smiling though, because potentially we could see two Ferraris on the podium tomorrow afternoon. We're all set for an incredible Italian Grand Prix tomorrow. We're going to be live at 1:45. The race gets underway at 2 o'clock. Hopefully you can join Julian Palmer, Harry Benjamin and myself on the BBC Sport website. And don't forget to look out for the Checkered Flag podcast. We'll be giving our thoughts on that amazing qualifying session we've just seen here in Monza a little later on. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow. Goodbye. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.